Hi, I'm Jonathan Weinberg, and this is Drawing with Fountain Pens, where I talk about the wonderful world of fountain pens, both for drawing but also for writing, and also in the history of art and design. As much as I love fountain pens, there's a certain amount of sameness about them. I mean, most of them, in particular in terms of the design of the nib. This is particularly true, I think, of contemporary pens now, where so many of the pens, particularly from smaller makers, use nibs that are made by one or two companies like Gogh or Gogh. Today I want to talk about an exception to all of that, which is the Pilot Parallel calligraphy pens. These pens have a completely different approach to bringing ink to paper. They're also really affordable. Now, of course, Pilot's a big Japanese company, and so they can afford to make all kinds of different pens and manufacture them, et cetera, et cetera. So that's part of the way this goes. But still, it's exciting, and in a way, I wish there was more of this kind of thing where there are different ways of imagining pens. So their nibs, the nibs in these pens, instead of being made of a sheet of metal in which are shaped, and then they put a little ball at the end of the pen that's grafted onto it, um, they use two sheets of metal and create this sort of parallel shape with it. And there's a space between that metal, and that's where the ink goes. And this works very well. It lays down a very wide line and a very thin line, which works very well with a certain kind of calligraphy. Particularly a kind of calligraphy if you want to do sort of a medieval types of letters, like the logo of the New York Times, let's say. But all kinds of lettering where you have thick and thin lettering. It works very, very well, and it lays down quite a lot of ink. There are 6 different sizes that these come in. I actually have 4 of them. They come in 1.5, 2.4, 3.0, 3.8, 4.5, and 6.0. And you can purchase the pens individually. They tend to run around $12 to $15 retail, or you here's what the box looks like, or I guess not really a box, kind of plastic. These actually even hang. You see them in art supply stores when you buy them singly. They come with 2 cartridges of ink, or you can buy them in sets. And actually, right now, I noticed on Amazon there's something called the Anzo set calligraphy, Pilot's calligraphy set, and that's packaged with a lot of extra ink cartridges, and it even has a little guide to doing calligraphy. So it actually makes a great gift, kind of Christmas gift to somebody, a young person who wants to learn about calligraphy or use them for drawing, because I think actually these pens are really terrific for drawing. They draw very expressively, with this great variety, and particularly if you use a whole bunch of different pens. One of the kind of artists that I really love is Van Gogh, or Van Gogh, and the way he does ink drawings with multiple line widths. Now he used a dip pen, and probably I think also even used some Asian pens, maybe even a bamboo pen. I'm not sure about that, but he's using various different pens to get the different line variations. But in this case, you're using something which is metal. Now, I wouldn't use a pen like this to write a novel, right? It's not really a great pen for writing a lot with, an everyday pen. Even the 1.5 size is quite scratchy, but it is, as I say, a great tool. I don't do calligraphy, so calligraphy isn't my thing, but I do really like drawing with them. Now, here's an issue, though, with the pens, which is how do you get the ink into them? And Pilot wants you to use cartridges. So when you open the pen up, you can see it uses a cartridge, but it also will use Pilot's smallest Con 40 converter. And that, unfortunately, only holds very little amount of ink. The larger converters that Pilot makes will not fit in the pen. But you can do, what you can do is you can convert one of these pens into an eyedropper. The barrel is entirely plastic, and the trick is you need to get a O-ring that fits here, and then use a bit of silicone on it here, and then that makes it tight enough to hold ink, and then you really can get twice as much as a Pilot cartridge will hold. Now keep in mind, a pen like this, the way it's designed is it puts down quite a lot of ink. So if you used a conforted converter, you're probably going to have to keep refilling it if you're doing a very complex drawing. In terms of you learning how to do turn into an eyedropper, which is really quite easy, the famous S. Brown has a very good little video in which he actually shows you how that's done. But there's another thing that you can do with these pens. The nibs easily come out, and they come out, and this nib will fit on an Opus 88 demonstrator pen. Here's one of those. It's one of my favorite pens. I have a few of these. This is a big pen, and this holds a lot of ink and is designed as an eyedropper. So you don't have to do anything special with it in terms of getting it to work as an eyedropper. And basically the nib, which is a number 6 nib, just screws out, and this nib, the Pilot nib, just goes right in and fits perfectly in it, and it works great. But the only problem is that Opus 88 demonstrator pens are not cheap. They run you over $100. So that can be a kind of expensive solution. But there's a cheaper solution, which is the Moonman M2 or MyJohn M2, which also is an eyedropper, and that will run you around $20, and that will also fit one of these nibs in it, and that's a less expensive way of going with that. I think the reason people are looking for alternatives, like it's not just about the ink capacity, is that this is a very inexpensive pen, and the holder itself is very lightweight. I think the pen as a whole, with a cap, weighs around 10 grams, a little heavier, I guess, when it has ink in it. So it's a very lightweight pen. And so it's nice to put this nib in a more substantial pen. And the Moonman M2, I think, works really well. And if you have it, the Opus demonstrator is even more beautiful, and so it gives you a much more rich and wonderful experience with the pen. It's a very long pen, and I think that's because Pilot was trying to give you perhaps the experience of working with something that's almost like a brush. When it has the cap on, it's over 6.5 inches long, and then without a cap, it is 6.5 inches long. It does not post, so don't try to post it. It also, when it doesn't have a cap on it, it has a tendency to kind of roll off the desk because they didn't include a rolling stop. With the cap on it, that doesn't happen as easily. I think it's really great for someone who wants to work very expressively. And I'm going to do a drawing of a landscape, a road, trying to sort of emulate Van Gogh a bit, who's a very different artist from me, and to sort of give you a sense of all the different kinds of effects that you can get with these types of pens, which I think are really very exciting. And also I think it's terrific that you can, that it doesn't cost very much. And that's another great thing in terms of experimentation. So kudos to Pilot to making such a great pen. I wonder why they don't do more experimenting like that and do more kinds of pens that might use, for example, their parallel point in different ways. I certainly encourage them to do that. I think the weakness of the pen is the actual barrel and the way you hold it. It's very, very light, but I wish that it was more like a regular pen. I would enjoy it more. So I hope you enjoy this. If this is something that is helpful and useful for you, please subscribe.